We're talking today about buying and selling, like real estate, talking about buying and selling some fantasy players. We're talking real dynasty trades and their values. So it is important to note that all these trades are in the Superflex format. There is no tight end premium. We're going to discuss both sides of the trades. We're not just going to pick which side we feel is a clear winner. We're going to tell you what needs to be added or subtracted possibly to make this trade fair. So let's get into it. And this is a guy we've been talking about for 3 years now, or even a year before he came out, Kyle Pitts. All right, let's talk about some Kyle Pitts trades. Again, Superflex, no tight end premium. Very important to note. We're talking about a tight end. So the first trade, Kyle Pitts for Ramondre Stevenson and a random 24 second. This is a 12-team start 10. Nate, let's start with you, even though I wasn't looking. I'm sorry, and you were coughing. My apologies. What do you want to do with this one? What needs to be added or subtracted?
Yeah, so I'm actually pretty good with this deal on the Ramondre side. That's what I would be taking. Kyle Pitts, love him, but in a non-tight end premium league, the tight end position is a bit more replaceable with a guy like Pat Frymuth, who we talked about previously in the last episode, as a nice target. TJ Hawkinson, guys who are a little bit cheaper than guys like Kyle Pitts. Give me Ramondre Stevenson, who's going to give me elite production at the running back position for the next 2 years and a second on top. For this to work out where I want Kyle Pitts here, I would be willing to move Ramondre Stevenson maybe straight up for Kyle Pitts if I'm not a contending team. I think if I'm just a team out there in a vacuum trying to make a good lineup, I want Ramondre Stevenson and the second.
I don't disagree with that. And when you look at what the Patriots did, or I guess you could say didn't do in the offseason at the running back position, it just solidifies that I think for the first time in a long time, we're going to see a bell cow in the New England Patriots backfield. I mean, I think Pierre Strong is going to get some carries too. He's only behind Ty Montgomery. I'm not a big believer in Kevin Harris, to be honest with you. I think he's just kind of there. But I'm also going to lean on the Ramondre Stevenson side here too. I'm almost wondering if you couldn't get more than a random second if you're moving Kyle Pitts. I mean, I understand it's not tight end premium. I know that. But I just feel like with the name of Kyle Pitts, I feel like you could possibly get more. I'm still happy with it. And I agree with you, Nate. I would do Stevenson straight up for Kyle Pitts. If I was just trying to get the Kyle Pitts side, obviously, I know I said you can get more, but you always start lower to try to move up if need be. Chev, your thoughts on this one here?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you guys. I mean, there's not really much to add at this point. Ramondre Stevenson is going to be a guy that he's going to get the touches. He's going to get the receptions. He might get more receptions than Kyle Pitts this upcoming year, to be honest. Like, that's just how that offense is wired at this point. They throw the ball to that guy, and he makes plays in the backfield.
Yep.
Ramondre Stevenson, it's important to note, he had 69 catches last year.
Yeah.
On 88 targets. So, Chev, you're absolutely right. There's always that possibility. Good on the ground, too. 5 touchdowns on the ground. Only 1 touchdown through the air, but still 69 catches.
Yep.
That's pretty big.
Nice.
That's pretty big.
Really good.
Let's go to the next trade here. So this is Kyle Pitts for a random 24 first and a random 24 second. It's important to note that these picks are from the same team, so there'll be linear picks from the same position wherever they happen to fall. And it's a 12-team start 11. Nate, we're going to start with you again.
Yeah, I like Kyle Pitts, even if you're a contending team. And if you don't have a tight end, I think Kyle Pitts is still a decent tight end to go after. He may not be able to give you the top 3 production that you want out of a guy with his price tag this year, but I believe he has that potential in the years moving forward. And he was still tight end 11 his rookie season. He's a guy that had 34.3% target share last year, also first with all tight ends in air yard share. Only played 10 games and still had the most deep targets, 20-plus yards down the field of any tight end. This is a guy that, despite lower volume, is being used really, really well. So on a contending team where those are my first and second round pick in 2024, and I can project those to be in the back half of the first round, I'm willing to make this move for Kyle Pitts if I need a tight end to fill up my lineup. Now, if I am a rebuilding team and I expect these picks to be in the first half, I'm not willing to make this move because I wouldn't trade a top 5 pick in 2024 for Kyle Pitts if there's no tight end premium. So I would certainly not want to add a 24 second on top of that either.
Yeah, Chev, go ahead. Tell me your thoughts on this trade.
Yeah, if I am not competing, this is not a smart trade to make. You don't want to trade for Kyle Pitts at all. If you're not competing, you're going to have a top pick. No reason to. But if you are competing, you're hoping Kyle Pitts comes back into form this upcoming year. You're hoping that he can get over 68 catches and be part of that offense and hopefully connect on a few of those deep plays. I mean, with it not being tight end premium, it's a little tough for him to score points, I think. But those deep plays, all he needs is one or two of those, and you're looking at 9 points right off the rip. Like, pretty easy play just to happen for Kyle Pitts because he's so athletic and so stinking big to go up there and make plays. But yeah, I agree completely with Nate. If you're competing, you are definitely looking at making this trade. If you are not, there is no reason to go out and get Kyle Pitts at this point for that price. Not even close.
Yeah, I would hate, these picks that could have been Caleb Williams or Marvin Harrison Jr. I'd hate it to go to Kyle Pitts, and I like Kyle Pitts, and I want it to work out. That being said, if I'm contending, I still would probably rather take these picks and put them somewhere else. If I'm targeting tight end, I'd probably rather try to take my random picks here. Again, if I'm competing, and look for a TJ Hawkinson or a Dallas Goedert, a guy who I know is going to get a lot of targets and probably will stay pretty healthy all season. That being said, if I'm contending, I don't hate this price for Kyle Pitts because we're talking back end of the round picks. So I'm okay with that. The last one here, Kyle Pitts, I feel like we're all going to agree with one side on this one.
Yeah, I think so.
12 team start 9. Kyle Pitts for TJ Hawkinson and Brandon Ayuk. Give me the Hawkinson side.
Yep. It's easy money here. You get the top production that Hawkinson gives you. He's still a young tight end, and you get Brandon Ayuk, who is being undervalued for the production that he's given us over the past couple of years as well, and he's still young.
Yeah. Chev.
Yeah, easily. Yeah. You mean these guys have both produced. Hawkinson, we think, is going to be a target hog in that offense as well.
Yep.
Brandon Ayuk has some more people around him. They're going to take some targets away, but he proved a lot last year. He proved that he can get out of the doghouse and be a reliable asset for that team. I like that side a whole lot. I mean, I don't know who made that trade, but you might sell off that's going to be a team that gets sold off in a few years.
What could we add to the Pitt side to make this fair? What if we added a guy who a lot of people are down on right now? Like, what if we added Chris Godwin?
Yeah, I'd be okay with that.
Even with the quarterback questions in Tampa, we still think Chris Godwin.
I think that's a fair trade in that occasion.
I think it's going to get figured out, and I think Chris Godwin is good enough.
I think if you want Kyle Pitts, that's good value.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
He plays in the slot as well, so like he's going to get targeted. And I believe I saw a stat where Baker Mayfield was like 72% or 62% passing to the slot this upcoming year. If Chris Godwin's in that slot, he's going to make plays. I still think he's the wide receiver 1 in that offense. I know Mike Evans is a stud, and he's going to maybe get another contract, but he's just an easier target to find at this point in that offense.
Our next focus player, and that's Garrett Wilson, guy that we all loved here at the Dynasty Rewind, and rightfully so. So let's look at some Garrett Wilson trades and see what we're going to do with them. Garrett Wilson for Breece Hall, the 2023 207. There's a 12-team start 9. Garrett Wilson side from me. Are we all agreeing with the Garrett Wilson side on this? Is anyone disagreeing?
I think this is fair value either way. I think it comes down to positional need because I would move Garrett Wilson for Breece Hall in a mid-second if given the opportunity and I needed to fill the running back position and I had wide receiver depth, which a lot of our dynasty teams these days do have wide receiver depth because there's a lot of them out there. But not many of your teams have running back depth. And if you can get a guy like Breece Hall, who's one of the top young running backs in Dynasty right now, I think you make the trade. I love Garrett Wilson. We talked about in the last podcast a little bit about him, but he is not Justin Jefferson. He is not Jamar Chase at this point, and he's the wide receiver 3 on Keep Trade Cut right now, above CeeDee Lamb, right below those top 2. And yeah, he had 147 targets last year, which is 6th in the league. So he put up good numbers, but at the end of the day, he wasn't a top 20 wide receiver in fantasy football. Like I said in the last podcast, fantasy football doesn't care about talent, it cares about the box score. And I love Aaron Rodgers, but we have to see it first. And I don't know what happens after Aaron Rodgers in New York either, because they don't have a good track record.
I guess I'm only on one on the Garrett Wilson side. Chev, what about you?
No, I'm on the Garrett Wilson side as well. I just think I like him more long term. I know Breece Hall's still young, but he had the ACL tear. At this point, I'm going to ride with Garrett Wilson. And we talked about the Jets quarterback record. I think screw drafting a quarterback. They have realized they can't do it. So they're just going to keep going out and getting a veteran every single time that they need a quarterback, in my opinion. They just can't figure out how to draft one. So I still think there's going to be longevity in Garrett Wilson's career, and I think it's going to last a little bit longer than it will for Breece Hall. But I don't think this is a far-off trade. I think it's actually pretty close because we've seen what Breece Hall could do, and that would be a top 5 running back pretty easily last year.
Yeah, I think it's a fair value trade, personally. Let's move on to the next Garrett Wilson trade. Garrett Wilson for Kyler Murray, Dalvin Cook, and a random 24th third. This is a 12-team star 10. So right now we're trading Garrett Wilson for a lot of question marks here. Guys that we like, but we got an injured player, an unsigned player, and then a random middle of the draft pick.
Yeah.
For the most part. Nate, why don't you kick us off here?
Yeah, give me Garrett Wilson here. I will take the known commodity and one of the top young wide receivers in Dynasty over all these question marks. Kyler Murray is obviously the most valuable player in the package, but still, I have a lot of question marks about him even before the injury and the team around him. You add in the injury, you add in the fact that they are stockpiling 2024 picks. Who knows if they're actually going to go after Caleb Williams or not? Either way, I'd rather have Garrett Wilson give me the points now, and I know I'm still getting a top guy moving forward.
Yeah, I'm going to take Garrett Wilson here too. Just I don't want all those question marks. We know Garrett Wilson, we think he could be a stud.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking Aaron Rodgers can unleash that. Chev, what about you? What are you doing here? I also, for what it's worth, I guess it's fair value, right? We're talking a guy who could be a top 10 quarterback, guy who's running back 11 last year, just doesn't have a team. Third.
It's just not very long lasting. I feel like it's something that's very short term. I don't think Kyler plays this year, so you're looking at that. If you're getting Dalvin Cook, you're hoping to compete, but if you don't have,
why are you getting Kyler Murray then?
That's what I'm saying. If you're getting Kyler Murray, then it's really no point at that. Like I don't know. I think it's the Garrett Wilson side pretty easy, and if he's going at wide receiver 3, which I don't agree with at this point, you could get way better players than this, in my opinion. Like, I would hang on to Garrett Wilson and find a better deal rather than going after some just random pieces at this point.
Yeah, if I'm the Garrett Wilson manager and this comes across my inbox, I'm going to say, I appreciate the offer, I do, but I'm not interested in these players. Mm-hmm. Let's move on to the next one. This is a 12-team start 11. You're starting 3 wide receivers specifically and 3 flex spots. Be anything here. Garrett Wilson 4. Devonta Smith and Jahan Dotson. Know what I'm doing. Chev, what are you doing?
Yeah, I'm taking the 2 wide receiver side. We've seen Devonta Smith. He's proven that he can be a top 12 wide receiver in this league. Even with A.J. Brown there, we saw the production that he can bring into that team. Then you throw in Jahan Dotson, who is an absolute stud, who, everybody thinks he's just a small guy. He's a bigger player than you think. That guy can go up and make plays on anybody, and he had a lot of touchdowns this last year. So I think that production is going to continue to grow, and you're starting 3 wide receivers and you're getting 2 guys instead of 1. I think that is major keys to finding a trade for Garrett Wilson, especially in that kind of format where you have 3 flex players as well. Like, you got to throw in some good players in that league.
Nate, do you agree?
Yeah, I'm going to take the package here, especially in a start 11 where you need to have, you have 3 wide receivers, but you have 3 flex spots. Mm-hmm. So we need to start a lot of players. It's better for your lineup most likely to have both Dotson and Devonta Smith than just Garrett Wilson. Mm-hmm. And honestly, Garrett Wilson production-wise, you're hoping for Devonta Smith production last year. So to get Dotson on top of that, I think that's definitely the move to make. I do think it's pretty fair, though. If I was going after Garrett Wilson, I think you'd want to give a little bit less than Devonta Smith plus Jahan Dotson, but I think it's pretty close. You just want to maybe tear down from Devonta Smith a little bit or tear down from Jahan Dotson a little bit when you're making that tier up of combining assets.
Yeah, I'm taking the Devonta Smith and Jahan Dotson side. I mean, a lot of people are like, oh, well, what Devonta Smith did last year, that's his ceiling. So 95 catches, almost 1,200 yards and 7 touchdowns. Sure, I'll put that in my lineup every week. I mean, why would you complain about that? And Jahan Dotson, we love his upside. I mean, there's a lot of question marks there too. We think it's Sam Howell's team right now. I hope so. Eric Bieniemy's there. Hopefully as an Eagles fan, not hopefully, but as a fantasy player, hopefully the Washington offense looks a little bit better. We got to start 3 wideouts. You got 3 flex spots. You got to fill them out. Let's fill them out with better players. And like Nate said, 2 is better than 1. So let's move on to our next focus player, and we are talking about Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor now running in a Shane Steichen offense. So Miles Sanders did in that offense. Jonathan Taylor better than Miles Sanders. This could be interesting. So first trade, Jonathan Taylor for DJ Moore and a mid to late projected 24 first, 12 team start 11. Chev, let's kick it with you first.
I love DJ Moore. I think he's a great player. I'm hoping that pick lands mid, but I'm not certain of it. I actually like Jonathan Taylor in this trade. I know it's start 11, but it's hard to come by running backs in the NFL these days that can just carry a workload. And I want that running back in my lineup. So I'm sticking with Jonathan Taylor at this point. We've seen him be the number 1 guy, and I think he can get close to that production once again this upcoming year.
If I could guarantee it was a mid 24 first, and then I could use some things to move up a little bit in that draft, I would consider it, but I'm going to stick with the Jonathan Taylor side here. Nate, how about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm going to take Jonathan Taylor here. Our good friend Brandon Gabor with Deep Dive Fantasy, he's been doing his projections and doesn't look great for DJ Moore. And the issue is the passing volume that the Bears are going to have. Yep. They were such a run-heavy team last year, like 60% run plays, which is kind of ridiculous in the modern NFL. So with that knowledge and the fact that this could be a late 24 first, give me Jonathan Taylor, give me the points in my lineup, give me the stud that I know is going to make an impact.
All right, so we are all on the same page there. Let's move on to the next one. I'm looking ahead at this one. This one's a little harder for me. This is a 14-team start 10. Jonathan Taylor for the 102 and the 202. So these are some pretty good picks. This is a tough one for me. I really want to say Jonathan Taylor, but I mean, I wish I knew that, like, if I'm losing out on Jonathan Taylor, but I had the 101 and I could get Bijan, it would be kind of a slam dunk.
Of course, Mike.
You know what I mean? Then it's a slam dunk for me because you're going from one elite talent to another. But I'm not. That being said, I feel like if I'm not contending, I'm probably still making this trade. I could get Jahmyr Gibbs, who I think is going to be a PPR machine. You get the 202, which could be a nice player on top of that as well. So contending, no. Pretending and not quite there yet, yes. Chev, validate me.
And these trades, I mean, I don't really like just getting picks back. If I'm trading away Jonathan Taylor, I would at least want to get some kind of asset that can score me points right now and be certain about that guy and know his kind of role for the team. 102, maybe you're looking at Anthony Richardson. Maybe you're looking at another quarterback. You're going to have to go with Jahmyr Gibbs if you need a running back, I guess. I'm still sticking with Jonathan Taylor. I like him a lot this upcoming year. I'm not certain what those pieces are going to turn out to. I mean, we have high hopes for Anthony Richardson, high hopes for CJ Stroud, high hopes for Bryce Young, but we've noticed like that doesn't always produce points in fantasy football for us. And we've seen a lot of players that just fall from grace. So I'm sticking with Jonathan Taylor.
I'm going to take the picks here. This is a 14-team league. So the 102, we might not be looking at Jahmyr Gibbs, might be looking at Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson as a quarterback. In a 14-team league in a super flex, those quarterbacks are extremely valuable. And I will take that with a 202 on top of that over Jonathan Taylor in just about every situation. Unless my team is absolutely stacked, I have these picks just chilling, and I just need a running back, then sure, give me Jonathan Taylor to complete my lineup. But most likely, most teams in a 14-team Superflex league would probably value the 201, the 102, and the 202 more than just Jonathan Taylor. Give me two guys I can put into that lineup where I'm already kind of probably lacking some depth.
All right, let's move on to the next one. Jonathan Taylor, and this is a 12-team start 9. Jonathan Taylor for Najee Harris and a 24 first. Before we get into the discussion, I do need to just say, as per John commenting on our YouTube channel today, Najee, LOL, dude's a bum. So just keep that in mind when we're talking about Najee Harris. John said he is a bum. That being said, you know, he may be a bum, but Najee Harris was the running back 14 last year while playing through an injury the entire season. Yep. I actually like this value, to be honest with you. I'm going to take Najee Harris, who I think is actually going to be better way better than the running back 14 this year. I actually think he could be poking into the top 7, top 8-ish, something like that. So give me Najee, give me the 24 first. Does it say where that first is by chance?
Just
No,
random.
24 first. Okay, so it's random. Could be mid. Give me Najee here. Nate, yes, no?
Give me the package. I'm a big Najee fan. He gets the volume, and volume is where it's at in the NFL, especially in fantasy football. So give me Najee Harris, who played better the second half of the season after he got that metal plate removed out of his foot. I'm not scared of Jalen Warren. I think Jalen Warren's a nice complimentary back, but I'm not scared of him. Najee Harris is the guy there, and until he is no longer the starting running back there, I'm going to be riding the Najee Harris train. I think he's going to be constantly undervalued for the next couple of years. So give me him and that 24 first on top. If that is a top 6 24 pick, I'm really happy with this trade.
I did see a little blurb today. It's going to be a lot harder to keep Jalen Warren.
Yeah, I saw that too. Whoa.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because yeah. But Chev, this is the type of trade you like. You don't like to give away a player for just picks. So you're getting a known good player here, and you're getting a good pick. What's your thought here?
Same as you guys, man. I think you have to go with this trade, especially because Najee's just not a guy that gets the rushing stats. He's a guy that gets the receiving stats as well, and that's what we want in PPR. We want to find those running backs. Yes, we're losing Jonathan Taylor, but also we're getting a 2024 pick, and it's super flex. There's going to be value there in this upcoming draft. There's a lot of good players that I am excited to see where they land in the NFL draft next year. Hopefully a lot better landing spots than some of these other guys, but I think that 24 first and Najee is good value to get away from
Jonathan. And I think if you're making this trade with a contender, I think you can get more than Najee in a first. I think you can get Najee a first, maybe a second on top of it. I think that's the kind of value you probably can get. If someone's looking to move off Najee, he's not a guy that a lot of people are in love with right now, and they're probably trying to make that upgrade to Jonathan Taylor. You can take advantage of the current market value of these guys, and you probably can get Najee a mid to late 24 first and second on top of that and make that deal.
Let's move on to the last player. This is who you've all been waiting for.
Man, good job,
Focus player, Drake London, wide receiver 0. Let's find his value, shall we? So trade number 1, this is a 12-team start 10. Drake London for Jahmyr Gibbs and a 24 third.
Give me Jahmyr Gibbs straight up for Drake London.
Ooh.
I think that's a pretty easy trade for me. So getting the third on top of it, sure, I'll take it. I would move Drake London for Jahmyr Gibbs every day, any day. Getting that running back positional value, getting a guy who, hey, we talked about Ramondre Stevenson might catch more passes than Kyle Pitts. Jahmyr Gibbs might catch more passes than Drake London. Come on. This is a guy. I had 114 targets last year, but only came up with 866 receiving yards. Jahmyr Gibbs might have 800-something receiving yards, his sophomore third season, something like that. Give me Jahmyr Gibbs, who's going to be putting up some great receiving numbers, some great rushing numbers with the Detroit Lions in the next couple of years.
Chev, what about you?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I've been saying it this whole time. I'm getting Jahmyr Gibbs for his receiving ability. His rushing ability is just bonus, and that's really what's going to come down to. I mean, he's going to be putting up a lot of rushing yards, but he's going to be putting up a lot of PPR points in fantasy football, and I'm in love with the kid. I think he has a great opportunity, especially in that offense with Jared Goff.
Yeah, Drake London had 72 catches last year, by the way. So only 3 more than Ramondre Stevenson.
That is true. And I do want to say this. If you're, let's take Drake London's name out of this equation. Let's just look at the stats. Do you think Jahmyr Gibbs can get more than 866 total yards and 4 touchdowns?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
If you do, then you take Jahmyr Gibbs, because I do as well. And I'll take the random third sprinkled on top of it. Let's go to our next trade. So this is a 12-team start 10. These picks are from the same team, so they'll be linear picks wherever the positioning is. Drake London for a random 24 first and a 24 second. Chev, what are you doing here?
I still like the picks. I still think there's a lot of talent out there. Yes, we know where Drake London is at. I'm not a believer in Desmond Ridder at this point. I think it's going to be an offense where Bijan is relied on heavily in the rushing game and in the receiving game as well. Throw in Kyle Pitts. It just got harder, honestly, for Drake London next year than it got easier this offseason. Not that I'm probably the highest guy on Drake London. I feel like everybody hated him. I kind of liked him. I'm not like 100% sold in, but that offense got harder for him to get production in this upcoming year, in my opinion. So I think there's a lot more good talent coming out that could replace Drake London in your lineup next year at the first pick. Then you get a second pick. You could trade that to move up with that first pick to go get the guy you actually want to replace him if you needed to. So
there you go.
I'm sticking with the picks.
I'll take the picks. I don't mind a random 24 first for Drake London if you believe in the talent and you believe in Desmond Ridder. I don't mind a random 24 first at all because I think there is some talent there and some potential with Drake London. He's not a bad wide receiver, but when you add the second on top of it, and that's just too much for me. Like Chev said, I think you probably can pick up a similar player in the first round next year, anywhere like around the mid area. And then having that second on top of it, you can definitely guarantee yourself you're going to at least get a player of Drake London's value, if not more so. And then, of course, if I can get a decent player at the first round next year and get another player on top of it, because I think that next year's class is going to be pretty deep into the second round. Yep. I really like the two picks here rather than having Drake London. Just a bit too much for me. A little too expensive.
Chev, I'm on board with you where I typically like to get a player back when I'm moving a player, but I think in this case, I can find my Drake London replacement by all means. So that is the side that I am going to as well. Let's see. One last one. Drake London and Dalton Kincaid for Chris Olave. This is a tough one here because we hate to lose Dalton Kincaid. 12 teams start 9.
I am going to take the Drake London side here.
Yep.
Give me the two players. I think Drake London is going to be able to give me top 30 wide receiver production, which I'm going to take. That's kind of like, hey, if I have a couple top 30 wide receivers all the way up through my starting lineup, I'm happy with those guys. So Drake London is still in my starting lineup, and I get Dalton Kincaid, who is already close to being a top 5 tight end in Dynasty. Hasn't even touched the field yet. So we love the potential of Dalton Kincaid. Drake London is a fine receiver. He's going to be able to score me fantasy points. He might not have the ceiling that Chris Olave has currently for fantasy football, but I'm willing to take the downgrade to get Dalton Kincaid and have these two players rather than just the one Chris Olave.
Yep, I'm in the same boat. I think it's Chris Olave obviously over Drake London, but then you throw in Dalton Kincaid, could be a top 5 tight end. That position is where you win championships, in my opinion. That positional difference from tight end 1 to tight end 12 is drastic. And if I can get a guy that could be a possible tight end 5 or closer to 1, I'm excited about this trade. And Drake, like we've been saying the stats, Drake London wasn't a slouch. He was a wide receiver 3, not a big deal. Still a guy you can throw in your lineup and get points from. So I'm sticking with Drake London and Dalton Kincaid on this one as well. Bob's going to hate this episode just from hearing the end of this, but that's okay.
Dalton Kincaid is the deal breaker here for me. I would prefer Chris Olave, but I don't want to miss out on Dalton Kincaid. So yeah, I'm sticking with the Drake London side. What tight end could we add to the Chris Olave side? And it would have to be a tier down.
I will say, if I already have a tight end like a TJ Hawkinson and Mark Andrews and Dalton Kincaid's my tight end too, I'm making this trade.
Yeah.
For Chris Olave.
For sure.
Okay. But if Dalton Kincaid is my projected starter at the tight end position, and I don't have much outside of him, then I definitely want to keep him in my starting lineup. But if he's kind of a replaceable tight end as my tight end too, then give me Chris Olave. Give me the wide receiver upgrade.